What's going on, guys? I want to do a review on my favorite throwing knives. Alright, you guys have probably seen this. I did show these in a past video. Summer's coming up and it's my favorite time to use throwing knives, although I do play around a little bit in the winter. It's pretty rare, maybe like once or twice the entire winter, for the very simple fact that when there's snow on the ground and you throw these and you miss your target, it's almost impossible to find them. So I just steer clear of playing around in the snow, and also when it's super muddy too. But with summer coming up and warm weather coming up, even throwing it into the woods and using a tree or other targets, sometimes they are a little bit harder to find, but I love playing with them. I've always been a fan of like throwing stars and throwing knives ever since I was a little kid. But this happens to be one of the sets that I actually kept because I like it so much. So I figured I would do a review for anyone else out there looking for a nice set of throwing knives. So this set is the Cutlery Air Cobras. All right, you can see 10 3/8 inches. It's a triple set, so there are 3 in this set. They're all housed in the same sheath, which I'll talk about in a second here. First, I want to show you what you get. And before I even get into it, let's talk about price real quick. All right, this set is 40 bucks. You could find it on Amazon. I'm going to link down in the description box to it. Do search around. You know, $40 is a very good price for the set. A lot of people don't spend a whole bunch of money on throwing knives, and I think it's because the majority of throwing knives out there are cheap. You know, why spend 40 bucks when you can spend 10 bucks? But I'll tell you this, for 40 bucks, I really like this set over a lot of the $10 sets. I've had probably dozens of different types of throwing knives. Most of them out there are symmetrical. They're like the, you know, spear point blades, very, very symmetrical designs. These are not. This actually just looks like a standard fixed blade. Of course, has a little bit of fantasy in there, as Cutlery is known for his fantasy type designs. If it didn't have these cutouts in the back, this would make a pretty decent fixed blade. You know, besides the grind being different, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I just like the look of it, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, when you're buying throwing knives, you're kind of getting them because you think they look cool. And for the most part, they're all kind of fantasy type designs. Some are more extravagant than others, but I just happen to like the set because it looks great. It's well balanced for the style of throwing that I do, which is a handle style throw, which I'll talk and elaborate more in the future. Obviously, you can throw a knife by its handle or you can throw it by its blade. There's many different techniques on how to throw knives. I'm not a professional by any means, but I can do a single rotation fairly accurate, and I can get it to stick more times than not. So, and that's just from one distance. Of course, you're gonna have to, you know, change things up a little bit as you get further away from your target. But anyway, that's for future videos. I will do more videos this summer, at least I am planning to, on throwing knives, because I get so much interest in it. People just like doing it. It's fun. It's impressive looking. It's really not that hard to do once you get a hang of it. It just depends on what kind of, you know, technique you like and you know, how far you are, pretty much. But anyway, all right, so here's the box. It's got some kind of Viking dude on the front. Again, Cutlery is very well known for his fantasy type designs and artwork and everything else. You can see some of the other ones on here. Not really a fan of these designs. They're a little too futuristic. This is the other version. These are the dual tone. It's considered black, but obviously all the flats are black and all the cuts are the exposed metal underneath. Just a cool look in my opinion. Of course, you can get them in a different flavor there, if you will. And then they have a throwing axe. All right, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different types of throwing knives and designs and stuff like that. This is just some of other Cutlery stuff. But anyway, when you open the box here, what's included, besides the sheath and the 3 blades, are 2 things. And I like that this set came with this, because not all throwing knives come with this stuff. Number 1, a target. Now this is a target I've never used, all right, because I like throwing into tree stumps. But it's very cool. It's quite large. It's probably 2 by 2 feet. And obviously it's very extravagant looking here, very colorful, but they have different points. All right, so if you're throwing with a friend, you can actually have a cool little game out of it. 50 points for a bullseye. You can see a 30, 25, and you know, less and less as you go outwards. Little confusing of a target. Obviously, you just want to throw it, you know, as close to the center as possible. It's just nice they throw in a target. That's something you get with most sets. All right, so besides the target, you also get this paper, which has 2 things on it. First, on the bottom, they give you a schematic of a target stand, which is pretty cool. I've never actually made this. I've always wanted to, but I never did. You can pause right there if you want and kind of look at what's going on there. And on top, just gives you a very simple technique on how to throw both a throwing axe as well as the throwing knife. You know, pretty rudimentary here, pretty basic stuff. Just depends on whatever style of throwing you're going to be doing. But the internet is your friend. I'm sure there's plenty, I never looked, but I'm sure there's hundreds of videos on YouTube on how to throw knives. If not, there are plenty of websites that explain it. All right, so let's talk about the sheath real quick. Obviously you can see it is a triple set, so there are 3 knives. They're all housed in the same sheath. Sheath, just standard nylon sheath. There is a belt loop on here, so you can put this on your belt. It's not removable, it's stitched in here permanently, so you have to fish your belt through it. Kind of a pain in the butt. I don't carry this on my belt. When I'm using these, I will literally just hold 2 to my side while I'm throwing 1. Okay, throw it, pass the next one, throw it, and so forth. I don't mind them bumping up against each other, getting scratched up. They're gonna look like crap after a while anyway. But basically, they're housed in separate panels here. Okay, so you have 3 different layers. All right, you're gonna wanna fold this back. It's a pain in the butt if you're putting this through the loop. You have a lot of potential of cutting that. All right, so just fold it back when you're putting these in. Bottom one goes in, then the next tier, the layer, and of course the top one. All right, again, there's a little strap on here. I'm not particularly fond of this because it is Velcro. It does hold fine. You have to keep it nice and clean. Unlike a regular EDC knife or whatever fixed blade, you're not gonna have tons of mud and dirt on it. These will go flying everywhere. They're gonna bounce out of your target, they're gonna stick into your target, they're gonna get stuck in the mud and the dirt and the grime. So keep that in mind when you're putting these filthy knives away, not to get that Velcro nice and dirty because it'll never stick, all right? But even with the strap undone, these aren't gonna fall out very easily. Just because of the fact that there's 3 of them in there, they're creating pressure towards the sheath, all right? So they're not gonna fall out very easily, whether the strap works or not. All right, let's talk about this more specifically. This is an AUS 6, all right? Obviously on the soft side, our blade edge doesn't really matter, okay? When you get these brand new, it's semi-sharp, but it's also a thick grind, all right? So like if you were to use this as a standard knife, you're gonna find its performance to be very poor, all right? Most of this edge, all the way up to here, is useless, all right? We're not using this as a knife. We're not using this for EDC or for cutting into wood or anything like that, okay? This is a throwing knife. I use mine strictly for throwing. Although it's a pretty badass design for a little fixed blade, it's not what its intended purpose is, okay? All I'm focused on is this tip. This grind is sharp enough and it is pointy enough to stick very easily, especially out of the box. These are fairly used and it's still pointy enough to easily stick into your wood targets, all right? As far as the balance point, very important for a throwing knife, okay? Balance point is dead on with this guard right here. Okay, so it's not blade heavy, it's not handle heavy. A lot of different throwing knives out there are blade heavy. It really is just gonna depend on your specific style of throwing. You could throw any throwing knife any kind of way you want. It just takes a lot of practice, obviously. But some people do specifically want blade heavy, throwing knives for their particular style. All right, so let's talk about this coating here. All right, like I showed before, you can get a non-coated one. I do like the black ones. I just like the look of it. All the cuts in here, the little fuller that's in the side here obviously stands out because it's dual tone. All the cuts on the handle, okay, you can see there's like a 45 there, also on the other side. The actual edge, the spine where these things are cut out here. It just gives a nice look to the knife. If you don't like that, or if you don't want to see a real beat up, scratched up coating, don't get the coated ones, just get the plain stainless ones. I happen to like the looks here. It did take quite a bit of abuse, considering how much this is actually going into the targets, and missed targets and hit rocks and dirt and ground and everything else. I would think that the coating would be more worn than it actually is, right? It seems like a standard Teflon coating, but it holds up fairly well. As far as the ergonomics on this, very, very comfortable, specifically because these cuts feels quite rounded. There's no sharp parts at all. All right, guys, stop the camera for a second there because I wanted to grab the scale. Very important to know the weight on this, especially people who are used to their throwing knives. 6.68 ounces. Let's give that another shot. Just make sure it's consistent. 6.68. All right, so that's where we're at. A little under 7 ounces. Okay, so it feels kind of hefty in the hand. It's just comfortable to throw. I find these are easier to throw. A lot of people do like symmetrical ones, again, spear point style blades with symmetrical handles. They just seem to be more commonplace than something like this, but I like this because it's different. This looks like a knife to me. It doesn't look like a throwing knife. You know what I mean? So that's why this originally stood out to me, and I went to try it out, and it has been my favorite throwing knife. So that's pretty much it, guys. There's not a whole lot to say about throwing knives. It's not like something you're gonna be using every day, in and out. How's it cut? How's it perform? Is there any hot spots? Nothing like that at all. It's very straightforward. Some things you want to look for when you're talking about throwing knives is something with a very acute point. All right, the pointier it is, the better it is. Okay, you want to have a little bit of heft. All right, so it's forgiving. So when you're coming in, let's say here's your target. When you're coming at your target, even if you come in at an angle, it'll still stick. If you have a blunt point, or if you don't keep your points nice and sharp, it will actually bounce off at this angle. Okay, and they have to actually stick straight in. But a lot of times when you come in, if you come in a little bit early, your knife will still stick on this type of an angle, you know, or if you come in late, it'll still stick on this type of an angle. All right, so it's more forgiving the pointier it is, basically. Again, our entire edge, completely useless. It's not gonna stick sideways like this unless it was razor sharp. It's just impractical. It's not realistic, all right? We're just using our points, that's it. Some people like these because they look like knives as opposed to throwing knives, you know, and I think that's why these stand out to me a little bit more, is because of the fact that they're asymmetrical, and the fact that they do just look like a little fixed blade as opposed to a standard throwing knife. But they're well balanced, they're nice and pointy. The $40 price tag for 3 of them is definitely in a lot of people's price range. They're badass looking and they work. Ultimately, that's why I like them the most. There's lots of cool throwing sets out there, but this one just has performed the best for me anyway. So anyway, you guys are going to see more videos over the summer of some different techniques and maybe some tips for people out there who want to know more about throwing knives. So that's all. If you guys happen to have this set, or if you have a different set you want to recommend people, by all means, please feel free to leave a comment. I appreciate your time as always, and I hope you guys have an awesome day. I'll see you soon. Take care.